Allen & Company wishes OOIDA and all members a safe, healthy, and joyous holiday season.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
Oral testing for drugs is one step closer to being implemented. We sit down with Landline Magazine's Jami Jones to go over details of the final rule that was published this week. The holiday shipping season is about ready to pick up steam, and Hamish Woodrow of Motive is cautiously optimistic. Will that momentum carry over into the new year? Plus, what's driving the cross-border trucking boom at the southern border? Woodrow tells us. From more federal funding for truck parking projects and another city moving to ban truck parking on city streets to a statement that he takes issue with and more, Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine joins us for another edition of The Parking Zone. And finally, the marketplace continues to maintain strength for available freight. We speak with Truckstop's Brent Hutto about freight data, rates, and how things are looking in week 44 of 2024. And now, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Mark. We are one step closer to implementing oral fluid testing. This week, the Department of Transportation published amendments to the final rule in the Federal Register. To talk about what those are, managing editor of Landline Magazine, Jami Jones, joins me. Jami, thanks for coming in.
Hey, you're welcome, Ashley.
Can you talk to me about where we are with oral testing and what we learned this week?
So there's been a movement, drug testing with the urine samples only. It's kind of invasive, and so there's been a push that oral fluid testing has been proven to be successful in detecting illegal drug use. And, so that was something that I know Women in Trucking, OOIDA, it's like, why are we not allowing this? Because frankly, it's easier, it's quicker, it's just as accurate. But as if with anything in the government, the devil's in the details, and they have had a really hard time getting this particular rulemaking rolled out because of different hurdles and concerns about the implementation of the program.
And perhaps a stupid question, oral testing, would that be just like a swab of the cheek?
Yes.
Okay, all right. What are some of the kind of hurdles that we're seeing?
Well, one of the things you have to have, and here it is truly a chicken and egg situation. So you need to have labs certified in order to implement this, but there are no certified labs yet. So the agency is going to have to move forward with that certification process so that it can actually start being rolled out, because you can't because this is specific to transportation workers. So there's certain things that they need to be aware of that maybe aren't concerns in other industries or with other employers.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily that the drug testing labs probably don't know how to do this. It's just making sure that they have all of the T's crossed and I's dotted when it comes to anybody working in the safety-sensitive trucking industry. And, like I said, it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing, because you have to be certified, but there's nobody certified, and here we are. And so, the agency is working on that. And, you can be kind of hopeful that that'll move along quickly, but this is another one of those things. And with the recent election, it could get stalled. We don't know, because typically when there's a transition from one administration to another, you will see a regulatory hold put on things that are in the pipeline. So this one, while we've made progress, it's not super clear where we're going to wind up.
Now, I know Landline Magazine and Landline Now has covered this topic. I'm curious, what is the thoughts from truck drivers that you've heard about this?
Honestly, like I said, with the urine testing, not necessarily on the return to duty test. If you've ever tested positive, those have to be observed. But a lot of people just frankly are uncomfortable with this. And when you have the technology, when you have the capability out there, it just makes sense to use it. Again, it's for ease, it's for comfort, it's for all of those things. And it's just one of those common sense measures that aren't real common when it comes to government regulation, but we are hopeful that, that this will go ahead and evolve into an option. It is not meant to replace urine testing, so this is in addition to. So they're not changing the entire drug and alcohol testing program. I think we need to make that very clear. So it may come down, the devil's going to be in the details. Is it going to come down to employer-specific, which test they want, and all of that? But once this does get rolled out, any positive results would be reported to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, just like they are with positive urine tests.
Okay. What is OOIDA's stance on oral testing?
It's something, again, Women in Trucking and OOIDA both were very vocal in saying that this just made a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And, it's nice when you have that, because we do have other issues out there related to drug testing that there is a very different opinion and some definite pitfalls that could come into play. But this one was, association-wide, it felt like it was pretty foolproof, so why not? Mm-hmm. Why are we not doing it was more the approach.
Now, oftentimes we hear oral and hair testing kind of in the same sentence, but two very different things.
Two extremely different things. And hair testing is just stuck in the regulatory process right now. And it's because there are so many biases with the way that the test results can come back. It depends on ethnic types of hair. All different things come into play on this. And the amount of false positives that are possible with hair testing are just too rampant right now. It's not ready for prime time. And this is one of those situations that OOIDA has been adamant, that if the results can't be trusted, then this is one that's not ready for prime time. Yet you have groups like the Trucking Alliance who are out there, hell-bent to make sure that they can do hair testing in place of. No, if you want to do it in addition, that's your employee. As an employer, that's your option. But they're not only wanting to have it replace urine testing, but they're also wanting to report those positives, which can be false positives, to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. And right now, there is a big brick wall between them and that happening. And that's where the association, OOIDA, is going to continue to play defense, because we can't have individuals caught up with false positives risking their livelihood. Mm-hmm.
Where do the two different types of testing stand in the regulatory process? Okay,
so the oral fluid testing that was a final rule that was published on November 5th. So it's a done deal. What is in the process right now is just the rollout of that. And, again, there can be a moratorium put on those things, because administrations hate 11th hour rules, if you will, and this one might be viewed as that. I don't know that, but it is a possibility. Hair testing is just flat stuck right now, because one of the steps in the regulatory process is for the White House Office of Management and Budget to sign off on the rulemaking, and that has been sitting at the White House since March of 2023. Oh, wow. I mean, that is almost a death sentence for a regulation.
All right. Jami, thank you so much.
Hey, you're welcome, Ashley.
That was Landline Magazine's managing editor, Jami Jones. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. Congratulations to Sean Kirsch of Walsenburg, Colorado. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 22 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 165 years without causing a single accident. Next, we'll get some analysis of the 2024 holiday shipping season from Hamish Woodrow of Motive. Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine joins us for another edition of The Parking Zone. And Brent Hutto of Truckstop explains why the market continues to maintain strength for available freight. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibertechtvd.com.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide.
Owner-operators need roadside speed.
Truckdown.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Welcome back. We're going to break out the crystal ball for a bit here and preview the holiday shipping season and beyond with some help from our next guest. Hamish Woodrow is Motive's head of analytics, and he joins us on the line now. Hamish, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. Great to be on the show.
I want to start with the overall environment out there, and we can kind of zoom in from there, I suppose, as we continue to talk here. I think it's safe to say that there are plenty of folks out there that will not be sad to see 2024 go. It's been tough out there, as we all know. In that context, let's kind of look to the short term here. Motive recently put out its Holiday Outlook report, which provides a preview of the months ahead. Cautiously optimistic is kind of the key phrase that I took from it here. Just as an overall viewpoint, what are you seeing out there in the weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, so we compile a lot of different insights in this economic report coming into the holiday season. There's a lot of uncertainty, I think, greeting everybody as we come into this week and the ones to follow. Key insights that we're seeing is on the retail side, we see actually really good strength coming into the holiday season, which is something that will be positive for carriers going out there. We actually see year-over-year increases, about 27% year-over-year on department store imports. We see grocery and superstores actually performing really well right now. So overall, like a pretty positive picture as we come into the peak season for the state of retail. We're still seeing like the freight market still suffering. It's been a little bit in the doldrums this year of 2024, but we expect some positivity both with this strong holiday season plus the overall capacity coming down in the market. It bodes well for 2025.
I want to make sure we kind of emphasize that because you used the word strong there. Are you anticipating a strong holiday shipping season? And if so, is it possible that we kind of see that momentum carry on and it turn into, a better overall environment in 2025? Yeah.
So what we look at in the data from our point of view is we're looking at hundreds of thousands of trucks visiting different distribution centers across North America. So we monitor over 300,000 distribution centers in the U.S. And what we look at is how many trucks are going into those facilities, how many loads are being dropped off. And so what we see overall is year-over-year increase in the number of trucks visiting these locations for the top 50 retailers in the U.S. We see specific strength in the grocery and superstores, the department stores and home improvement sectors coming into the holiday season. So we expect year-over-year increases on their side. And that is what we see is really what the inventory managers, the purchasing managers of these retailers are predicting their demand is going to be coming into this holiday season. And what we see through their decision-making and through the amount of imports coming in just now is relative strength compared to, and looking for year-over-year increases. So that's something that we see as a positive signal. And if we even look further up in the supply chain, which we cover looking at imports coming in from Mexico, the number one import partner for the U.S., as well as imports coming through China, we see year-over-year increases and real strength coming through July and August into September this year, which bodes well for overall where the sentiment is regarding consumer demand coming to the end of the year. And I think with the capacity having continued to drop through the year, it means that we should expect some pricing strength coming out in the peak season. They'll start to benefit carriers, and we'll start to really come out of this, the end of this recession that's really lasted since the back end of 2022.
I want to ask you about rates because that's one of the main questions that we get, that OIDA gets, especially, our listeners, a lot of them are owner-operators out there and depend on the spot market to make a living. And again, that's like the number one question I think that people keep asking, and nobody knows. I mean, we should, preface it by saying that for sure. But are you seeing encouraging things there with rates? When are they going to start to turn around? We've been scraping the bottom for so long now. Do you see anything encouraging you or, encouraging that tells you we're about to maybe see a bump here?
Yeah, I really do feel that we're kind of in the tail end of this cycle of rate. Like, we look at the fundamentals ultimately, and the fundamentals is when it comes to the retail side, we see really good strength coming in from the demand side in the market. We see that capacity has continued to fall. The contraction in the market has been substantial even through this year. Contraction has dropped overall and is kind of in a sort of limbo phase where it's not growing yet, but it's having very minor contraction month over month. So we're in this phase where we really see that the holiday season actually is going to be one of our, for us, first tests as whether we've really hit that equilibrium point where we have demand and capacity finally matched to start driving these prices up from relative historic lows. And so we see this Q4 season being the first point that we're probably going to see some pricing movement, that we're going to see with demand being fairly strong right now on that side. We'll start to see and the consumers being still strong in North America. We see this as a really good test point for the market where we'll start to see some good movement on the spot market coming into the holiday season. We've got a long way to go back up to a normal level for carriers on the pricing side, so we expect some movement this holiday season and then really continuing to a more normal cycle in 2025.
One thing that factors into everything you're talking about there and factors also into your holiday outlook report is that you note that carriers are still exiting the market here. Says a lot about where we are right now. What does that balance look like right now with those leaving and those entering the industry, and what does that tell you?
Yeah, so we see a couple of trends, and we publish a few different insights on the holiday outlook report. So first is, we're still seeing net contraction, net exits of carriers. So we see about 1,300 carriers last month exit the market, and most of these are going out of business, closing down shop, and the majority of these are small, medium-sized carriers. But one of the things that we see is a big change from 2022 to now is the age of those carriers exiting the market. So the majority of those carriers now are of the age of about 3 years. So actually back in 2022, we saw the average age of a carrier exiting on a given month was around 1.5 years old. And so what we're seeing with that is that, that's actually a pretty normal, historically, if we look pre-2020, the historical age, the average age of a carrier exiting was around 3.3 years. And so we've moved back to a more normal cycle there. And what it's also saying is that, this is, with the length that this freight recession has gone on, we're just essentially burning through the cash balances that these customers have. And that's why we're seeing older and older carriers start to exit, is that, this is extended for such a long period of time now. And with interest rates still being relatively high and overall credit being hard to come by, what we're seeing is the carriers that are now exiting the market are older and ultimately have just been unable to sustain this business at such low rates. And you're seeing like older carriers finally exiting the market. And so that's one of the other signals that we see, that the market's it's got through the glut that came through in 2021 when that market grew 27% year over year and with just unprecedented growth of new carriers. We've gone through that glut of new carriers, and really now what's happening is more mature carriers are exiting the market. And this is really telling us that we're really getting close to that inflection point, that these rates are unsustainable. They're taking out some of the older companies now. And so that's where we're really thinking that we're going to see that with demand being maintained through the end of the year and capacity being really like at its low point, then we're going to see some growth coming into 2025.
Yeah, you can only bend so much before you break, and clearly we're seeing a bit of that out there. Speaking of which, I guess it kind of segues into the cargo theft problem, something else you point out in this report here. And you kind of predict that things are going to get worse before they get better, starting with this holiday season. What are you seeing out there that is raising some alarm bells for you? And in particular, credit card fraud. I noticed that you bring that up as well. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of things we see on the cargo theft and then the fraud side overall. So we see, cargo theft surged 49% in the first half of 2024. I think with the holiday season, we're going to see this likely exacerbate even more. So it's something that we see as an increasing concern, especially customers who are trying to, one, maintain their businesses. Business is tough to fight for, and two, overall keep their costs down and find ways of improving their margins. We're seeing cargo theft being a really strong theme. I think we're seeing it also on the fraud side, where we see about 19% of fleet spend being lost to fraud or theft. In a market with very compressed rates, and we expect that this is one of the areas that you're essentially bleeding money as a business, and so we're seeing a lot of focus with our customers as well as overall in the industry around really trying to identify fraud, as well as especially on the credit side, the fuel card side, what's happening on that side, because it's a hidden cost to businesses. And we also expect that to rise in industries like construction, with things up more than 22% of costs going towards fraud or theft. And so these are material costs for businesses, and especially with the overall economic uncertainty, as well as real pressure on your margins to stay competitive as a business, we're seeing increasingly customers come to us trying to identify it and root it out of their business.
While we have you, Hamish, I'd like to pick your brain about what we're seeing in cross-border trucking. We've seen the amount of freight crossing, to and from Canada going down, but it's being offset by really a boom at the southern border. Can you talk a little bit about what's behind the spike there and what you're seeing? Because I think it's kind of interesting, again, the difference that we're seeing there between the two borders.
Yeah, and so I think this is one of these long-term trends that I'm most interested to keep an eye on, and the growth in the southern border and the Mexico to U.S. trade has been astronomical over the last couple of years. And we monitor through our data, and we also look at public data. But if you look at the Port of Laredo, so land port in Texas, we see over a 30% increase year over year in terms of imports and truck activity going across that border. Huge amount of volume of traffic going through. What we see is, when we look at further into the data, a lot of this is being driven by computer-associated parts, so like computer, electronics, really driving up those trades, as well as overall vehicle manufacturing as well. And so we really see a lot of strength from Mexico. Mexico's been the number one importer into the U.S. for a while. Although China, for example, imports from Chinese imports through August increased 19% month over month. If we look at where China is compared to 2018, they're down almost 17% in terms of where they were in August 2018 versus August 2024. They're down 18%. What we've seen is Mexico really fill that gap, and we see a lot of growth in overall and consistent growth across this whole year, and especially with 80% of that coming in through trucks in Mexico and the U.S. We're seeing a real strength and continual strength in Mexican imports. And so I think that's a trend that's going to just continue to carry on into 2025 and 2026, because we've seen a lot of foreign direct investment into the northern states of Mexico, bringing in manufacturing facilities, distribution facilities. And as this comes online, this means more trucks. This means more imports coming north of the border. And this is something that, when we think about all the uncertainty that has plagued the industry over the last 4 years, it's almost like every month we get some new event happening that's going to impact the industry. Diversification of your supply chain is becoming so important, and Mexico is a key component of that, and it's really powering the strength of imports coming in from there.
As we close things out with you, Hamish, here, I just wanted to zoom out one more time, because overall, we kind of started this off by saying you were cautiously optimistic, or Motive was, about the environment out there. Just from our conversation, it does sound like you are encouraged by most of the things that you're seeing out there. Is that a safe statement?
So we're starting to see a lot of the fundamentals tick up in the right direction. Diesel prices still remain relatively, have maintained their low points for the year. And stability, along with hopefully interest rates coming down, will allow investment to come back into the industry. And so we expect Q4 to be a positive season where we'll start to see some price popping. And then 2025, really, where we return to that more normal cycle. We have an up cycle, and the industry can finally reinvest in itself and grow.
Normal sounds pretty good to me, Hamish. We'll get there eventually. We really appreciate your time and appreciate your insights today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Our thanks to Hamish Woodrow of Motive. We're back with more Landline Now in just a moment.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truckstop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
A blank space on many maps with the distance between parking spaces seemingly as great as infinity. It is the boundary that separates safety and security from the dangers of the road, the space between electronic signs and a place in which to rest. It is not a dimension of the imagination, but instead the reality faced by truck drivers every single day. It is a place we call the parking zone. Here are your guides for this journey into parking news good and bad, Scott Thompson and Tyson Fisher.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Tyson. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let's jump right in here. Got a lot of ground to cover today. We've got yet another round of infrastructure funding coming down the pike, and there is some money in it for truck parking expansion.
Indeed, there is. So the U.S. DOT just dispersed more than $4 billion for...
With a B.
With a B for 44 different infrastructure projects. That's including 2 truck parking projects, and then there was a larger project that also included some more truck parking. So real quick, the rundown is there was $18 million will repurpose 2 closed rest areas in Ohio. Repurpose those as new truck parking facilities. So there's one on I-70 near the Indiana border that will include 100 parking spaces. There's another on I-80 near the Pennsylvania border on the other side of the state that will have 38 parking spaces. Then there's going to be another $12.5 million will replace 2 rest areas along Interstate 43. That will be in Wisconsin. So that will include truck parking expansion at both of those rest areas, specifically 70 additional truck parking spaces in Wisconsin is what that comes down to. And then lastly, there's a nearly $300 million I-80 widening project in Nevada. Part of that project will include 50 truck parking spaces along the I-80 corridor in the Reno area. So, again, another round of funding going to truck parking. Say what you will about the DOT, which we could say many things, many criticisms.
How much time do you have?
Right.
Yeah.
But the agency under the current administration, just give them credit where credit is due. They have done more for truck parking than pretty much anyone else. They really have. In January, the DOT awarded nearly $300 million specifically for truck parking projects. That was preceded by another, I think, like $80 million for truck parking projects just in last September. So we're talking about $400 million in the last 12, 13 months specifically for truck parking. So, it's more parking. So therefore, more money is needed. This $400 million is just kind of scratching their surface there. So again, going to hark back to the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, that will give us another $755 million specifically for truck parking projects. And so just, don't fall asleep at the wheel on that. So it's great that the DOT is giving the money on their own from the infrastructure bill. But again, Congress has an opportunity to, just keep adding more to this. And the difference is that $755 million is dedicated specifically to truck parking projects. And nothing else, free parking. So, hopefully we can get that through the door. But in the meantime, DOT, again, credit where credit's due, giving some money, doing some work for that.
Yeah, and time is running out on the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act, running out pretty quickly here. But we've been surprised before. Maybe they'll do something before this session ends. If not, we're looking at reintroducing it again in January, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then most likely, because each time the bill's introduced, it gets more and more momentum. Yeah. So I was hoping a third time would be a charm, but, hopefully it will be. If not, big number 4.
Keep putting the pressure on those lawmakers, and eventually, hopefully, most of them will get the message there. We're going to turn our attention now to the Truck Leasing Task Force, which was established to look at predatory lease purchase agreements, but truck parking did come up in the most recent meeting at the end of October when the chair of that task force, Steve Rush, brought it up and had an interesting take. I'm going to get your reaction to the take here, but let's first hear it. Again, this is Steve Rush, the chair of the Truck Leasing Task Force.
My mind is always on trucking, even though I'm retired now. But when I look around trucking, I see so many inefficiencies. And right now, there's a proposal, you read about it all the time, where they want to have truck parking all over the country. And I sit there and I go, why? What are you doing? Go back to when it was regulated. Go back to when it was highly organized. Sleeper cabs were the exception, not the rule. Drivers were home predominantly every night. They had a good life. Go back to that. Take those sleepers off the trucks. That's 3,000 to 5,000 pounds on every truck that could go back into the product, the net weight of that truck. So that's tremendous opportunity for efficiency, tremendous opportunity to take care of people that we need vitally, even more so in this world that we live in. So just something for another committee to get moving forward on the trucking industry. So when you read about those truck parking that they're asking for, no. We don't need that. We need to get the trucks off the road and get the drivers home.
All right. We have heard Mr. Rush's take there. Tyson, I know you've got some thoughts on it.
So I got a lot of thoughts. I'll try to keep it condensed here.
Sure.
I'm just going to call it for what it is, which is it's just an extremely dumb take. I mean, that's the short answer to that.
Okay.
I mean, usually I wouldn't give a hot take like this another platform by mentioning it, but this was Steve Rush. He's the chair of FMCSA's Truck Leasing Task Force. And those comments were made in his official capacity as the chair during and on the record meeting. He was also a board member of the American Trucking Associations, and he represented the National Tank Truck Carriers at a Truck Action Plan White House event. So that was just 2 years ago. So the point being is this guy has a certain level of influence. He absolutely does. And so, his entire argument for abandoning efforts to increase truck parking is based on this fantasy that trucking goes back to the days before deregulation.
Right.
When most truckers were home every night. The reality is that most long haul drivers, they don't go home, and therefore, absolutely, they need more truck parking. That's just what it is. So, if you want to fight for regulations and policies that kind of revert back to those deregulation days, then go for it. I mean, a lot of people would probably agree with Steve Rush, and I do actually, that those were probably better days for the driver.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But just know that kind of, and it would be a radical change from what we have today. It would take years, to implement. So in the meantime, right, we have to address the problems that are plaguing truck drivers today, and one of the major problems is truck parking. So, Steve Rush's thoughts are, they're pretty far removed from reality. It's basically the point I'm trying to make here. And the American Transportation Research Institute's their annual critical issues report, truck parking has been in the top 5 critical issues since 2015. So almost 10 years running now. So for him to use his platform as the chair of the Truck Leasing Task Force to promote this insane call to action, it's just to quit investing in truck parking. It goes against what every actual truck driver knows to be a real problem that needs to be addressed yesterday, to be honest with you. So, that's basically all I'll say about that. Until Steve Rush goes back into a time machine and stops deregulation, this is the reality we are faced with now.
This is the problem we're facing right now.
Right. And so we have to address it.
The solution, again, as you point out, the practical solution is dealing with the actual problem in front of us, which is the lack of truck parking.
Sure.
That is a far more achievable goal than, as you kind of point out, going into a time machine and going back to this time, the time before. which again has its benefits, but
for sure,
reality we're not anywhere close to there. So, good points there, Tyson. Let's move on here. We've got a few minutes. I want to make sure we hit on a few other things here. Another city, this time in New Jersey, banning truck parking on city streets.
Yeah, so truckers are parking up and down the streets of East Brunswick, New Jersey, and apparently residents are not too happy about it. So it looks like many of the issues are happening off of State Route 18 on West Ferris Street and 6th Street. So basically the city is proposing an ordinance that will essentially ban trucking on those two streets specifically. So kind of be on the lookout for that. So, some trucks were pretty much in the way while they were trying to repave those roads, and they were towed. And, in a local news article pointed out that they were towed and the fees and fines were hefty. There were big tow fees. And so, I don't know, just if you're going to park around East Brunswick, just be, cautious of the fact that they're really cracking down of, parking within the city limits, within the city proper. So just kind of, look for a Truckstop or utilize a parking app or be fined and towed.
And that's the issue we talk about all the time is, okay, fine, but where are they supposed to go? Give us an alternative.
Right.
And a lot of these cities don't understand that. Moving on here to Greenwood, Indiana, trucks parking at the site of a former hotel, and residents are not happy about it there.
Yeah, so just to paint a picture where this is at, Greenwood is between I-65 and I-69. I believe I-65 runs through it there. You said residents. It's actually resident.
Singular.
It's a guy.
One guy. There's always one guy.
There's the guy. So according to the Daily Journal, it's the local news source there, it was just one guy's complaining about it, and because of that, the parking will likely not be available at this the Red Carpet Inn. Again, the Red Carpet Inn is an abandoned lot now, doesn't really exist now. One resident asked the city council to do something about it. The problem is with the city is that the city ordinance allows truck parking in the commercial areas, which is where this is at, and it's privately owned. So the city can't do anything about it. But the lot owner said that he will be putting up barricades to prevent truck parking. So what's interesting about this article, though, is that so it mentions this as one guy at a city council meeting, but then for the most of the story, it talks about truck parking in that area and truck parking in general. So along I-65, there's been issues with parking along the ramps and shoulders. So in Greenwood, the Greenwood police are cracking down on that, on I-65 shoulder parking, and they have been. But the Daily Journal also did a great job of explaining the truck parking situation as a whole. Kind of a tip of the cap to Noah Crenshaw. It was just great reporting and digging into the issue. It started off as just one guy complaining about truck parking in this one little lot, and it turned into this bigger piece about, but truck parking is a problem, and here's why. And so it put it into context so, it's the local residents can say, well, before you start complaining about truck parking, understand why we are here. And I think that more local journalism needs to kind of to do a deeper dive into why are we here.
Yeah, awareness is key because, as we all know, not enough people who don't have any knowledge of trucks understand what's going on out there and why trucks are parking where they are. Moving on here, Iowa, we've got a rest area. Speaking of abandoned areas or facilities, we've got one there that was being used for truck parking. It's going to be closed for the winter, though.
Yeah, rest area at mile marker 51 on southbound I-35 in Iowa. That'll be shut down for the winter season beginning November 18th. That won't reopen until late April. So the reason is because the ramp from the rest area to the interstate is on an incline, and so when during inclement weather, it's just hard to gain traction and get on the highway. So that's going to be closed. It's only about 6 spots, so just kind of be aware of that closure when you're planning your trip.
We don't have a lot of time, but I know we always have a number of travel stops opening up across the country. Any stand out to you there that you want to kind of point out?
Yeah, so Travel Centers of America, they're opening 3 new locations. One's in West Virginia, Mineral Wells, West Virginia, off I-77. And then there's 2 in Pennsylvania, one in Hazleton, that's 50 spaces. And then there's another in Pine Grove, that's also off of I-81, that's 237 spaces. The thing is, I think these are just refranchises. These aren't brand new, but also it adds to their network. If that's your preferred truck stop, you got several more locations to turn to with Travel Centers of America. Yeah.
Always something going on with parking, good and bad. Tyson, we appreciate it as always, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
You can check out Tyson's work in every issue of Landline Magazine and every day on our website, landline.media. We'll take a break for now, but don't go far. We're back after this with more Landline Now.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit capitalreman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from Truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with the report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truckstop. How are you doing today, Brent?
Man, as I like to say, Ashley, anytime I can talk to you and to Landline, I'm in good shape. So doing great. Just been a big week, obviously, around the country with the election and everything. So it's just been lots of fun to watch freedom and democracy work as it does here in the United States.
Yes. Now, to get things started, if our listeners are familiar, you always start with a song. I don't know how long we've been talking, but I will say this is we've hit a week. I know this song. I know it.
You do?
I do know it. So I don't know how often this is going to happen, but yeah, one for the books. Well, what are the current market conditions like?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I do. Glad you knew the song. This Is Your Life by Switchfoot. It's a really cool band. And I started with that because no matter what happens in elections, no matter what happens in the things that are outside of our control, I do know we get to vote, obviously, but the way the government works, we feel like outside of our control. But I chose the song "This Is Your Life" because this is your life, and the tagline is "Are you who you want to be?" In other words, are you accomplishing the things that you wanted to accomplish? And I think about truckers. I think about being on the road, and I know that if every time you ask a trucker if they would want to be a trucker again, they'd all say yes because they love what they do, and so that's really kind of like you got to take control of it. And so we'll talk. That's why I love talking about the data with you. And the big three things in the spot market things to look at are what's the availability of freight or the pressure of freight in the market, and then what's rates, and then what's another metric that follows along. And so for us, that's the market demand index, and it's kind of like staying in the high 60s, which is above where it probably should be, but it does show you that the marketplace continues to maintain strength for the available freight. Freight's just kind of where it normally is from a 5-year average, which is really good, and it keeps growing against trend, which is good. Now, what I mean by growing against trend is there's more freight available than the trend line would show you going up and to the right, which up and to the right means there's more of something. So you'll hear that. And then rates have continued to stay right here at about 229, 228. 228 the overall rate is I like to, just like you and I like to talk about, and we encourage every trucker, that's just the beginning rate. Negotiate. Know what is the inbound and outbound in the places in which you're looking so you can negotiate the best and the fastest. And, van increased a little bit, which is good. Van went back up to $2. And I know that van, if you're an efficient van hauler in the United States, you're about $1.34 cost for your operation. So you should be able to make money at that. I know a lot of them want to look at $2 freight or above. At least that's what it used to be. It's probably more like $2.20, $2.30. But inflation continues to come down, which helps. Flatbed decreased a little bit, about 3 cents, but it's still above where it was in week one of 2024, which is a good thing. Fuel, just has kind of stayed where it's been. It's been 43 cents against the fuel surcharge. And so that's good. But the outbound tender reject index, and I always want to make sure truckers, look, if you're not looking at the outbound tender reject index, which is on the Sonar platform on FreightWaves, just watch it. It mirrors along what the spot market's doing, because the outbound tender reject index is the contract freight that's getting rejected or renegotiated. And if it's above 5%, that means we're going to continue to gain strength inside the spot market. Where there's more freight, the rates go up. And so that's really what you want to look at. You want to look what directional influences are there on where rates are going. And rates have been up, as we've talked about before. Over the last 15, 16 weeks, rates have been over the previous year, that's what you want to look at, Joe. You always want to compare it to the previous year, because looking at like last week or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, spot market is really, really volatile. In other words, it goes up and down a lot. So you want to kind of look at those big three, and that helps you get a really quick snapshot of what's going on in freight for the owner-operator market.
What are some of the top regions and lanes from last week?
Yeah, for sure. You know, when we talked about load availability just a minute ago, what's interesting right now is when you look at load availability across the country, it went up like 10% up on the West Coast, but year over year it's up 6%, which is good. Mountain Central went up almost 9%, and year over year it's up 16%. I'll go to the Southeast. Southeast went down almost 15% week over week, but it's still up almost 40% year over year. So there's more freight. And the Northeast is just kind of cruising along. It's a little bit of an increase, almost 3%, but it's up almost 2% year over year. And so when I talk about freight, there being more freight in the market, every owner operator should want more freight to be in the marketplace, because then the rates start to creep back up to where they're more profitable for them. And so when you look at rates, same sort of thing. It's kind of modulating right at like I said, at that 228, 230 mark, somewhere in there, which should be the 228, 230 mark, which should be very, very profitable should be profitable. And that's all. Very profitable is a weird thing, because it depends on how efficiently you're running your truck. But overall rates kind of just are modulating along, or just kind of cruising along at this good balance of about 229 and 230, between 229 and 230, which is a really good thing for owner operators. And then when you look at some of the lane changes, we've talked about this over the last many weeks. It's been out of Texas, out of the sort of the western side, but not like California, but like Phoenix, Salt Lake area. Van freight increased a lot out of the wet from the West Coast coming back this way. So this is why I encourage every owner operator, make sure you look at the data. It's right there in your hands. That's why I chose that song. This is your life. So you've got to take control of yourself if you really want to see the success. And in today's marketplace, because the data is right there, you can go look at it. Flatbed, same sort of thing. There's some stuff. It's more on the eastern side of the country, or maybe in the central part, but same sort of thing. Miami to Houston increased a bunch. Kansas City to Denver. So you can see where there's freight moving. And then refrigerated, same sort of, a lot of refrigerated stuff out of Dallas. Dallas kind of goes across the board. But so yeah, that's what you've seen the biggest from regional and some lane changes.
All right. Well, any advice that you have for owner operators?
Yeah, what I'd say is I'd just be more hopeful than I would be pessimistic. I know it's not been the greatest correction of a market that we all need, but remember that freight is global. So when you look at the global freight that moves around the world, and if those rates are increasing, you're going to get a higher rate increases in the United States. And so there's a great figure out there called the Logistics Managers Index. It measures 6 continents and the freight that moves on those continents, not just the freight, but also the warehousing and other things like that. And they've seen pricing continue to go up, so that's a good thing. It's pricing, because we're a global marketplace, and America's the biggest consumer. So freight, just want to watch that index. Again, I'll say it's the Logistics Managers Index. It's like the LMI.org, but no, it's something that's like the LMI.something.org. But you can find out. It's not hard. Just type in the Logistics Managers Index. And also, freight is gaining in strength, and so that's why we're watching the numbers. We've got more freight in the market than we normally have, so it's above trend. So rates keep coming up. And you look at our GDP and the gross domestic product in the United States, and it has been, when it's between 2% and 3%, America is growing. All right, even though we've had some challenges with inflation where prices are just freaking higher, everything's higher. By the way, prices aren't going to go back. Doesn't matter. We know that Trump's going to get in the office, be the next president. Prices don't automatically will pay for things. They're not going to go down. But the point is that does the inflation come down so your dollar is still worth $1? So that's really what you want to look at. And there's smaller chances of recession now than ever because our economy in the United States kind of continues to stay, production-wise, pretty strong.
All right, wonderful. And Brent, if any of our listeners want more information from Truckstop, where can they go and get that?
Oh man, same place as we've been for 29 years. Just the old www.truckstop.com. You can get to anybody on Truckstop there. You can get to any of our products, any of our demos on products, anything that you need. You can just go there. Giving out phone numbers is kind of tough because most people are listening on the radio, but just go to www.truckstop.com and we'll be happy to help you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
That was Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.